Joined now in the Nation Network studio by the host of the Frankly Speaking podcast of the Daily Faceoff NHL insider, Frank Seravalli, who has been with the Vancouver Canucks through 2 rounds and
1 month in the lower
moving
mainland.
on. Exactly. You were just talking about how great the weather has been until today.
Yeah.
So
It's like a funeral for the Canucks.
It's true. It does. It looks like the stereotypical Hollywood funeral day.
Been saying it all morning. The sun did not actually come up today in Vancouver. All right. We'll start with our poll question, Frank. What cost the Canucks the series here? Injuries, lack of shots, special teams, inexperience. Feel free to go off the board.
I think when it comes to game 6 and 7, I'm going to go inexperience. The Canucks had a kill shot that they could have taken in game 6 in Edmonton, and they didn't really show up. And 4 shots through period 1, then maybe even fewer, 2 in the first period of game 7. They had the Oilers on the ropes, and some would say, maybe even looking at the totality of this Canucks playoff run with an offense that got things done by smoke and mirrors at times. They had some circus-like wins this postseason, and it was amazing to watch, and it was a really fun time to be around this team. The belief that they have is powerful, but if you're going to take down a legitimate Stanley Cup contender in game 6 or game 7, you have to bring more than that. And the composure that the Oilers showed, instead of sitting back and thinking, as Chris Knobloch said, about what could have been. I mean, could you imagine the talk and conversation in Edmonton today if the Canucks are the team that prevails, given all that's gone into this Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl era? It'd be a totally different story. That could have been overwhelming, but they have been through some different battles and trying situations before, which is why I lean toward inexperience. We talked about this heading into the playoffs. Teams that haven't won before almost never run the table and become a team that comes out of nowhere to win. It's too hard. You can't grind your way through 16 wins and fake your way there. Not to say that's what the Canucks did, but I think they had an opportunity and they missed it.
I've been preaching the bright side of this, that they could have stolen this series. They absolutely could have, but it would have been to no end because they probably would have lost to Dallas and maybe even quickly. And even if they pull off a miracle, like they weren't going to beat Dallas and one of the New York Rangers or Florida Panthers. This was not a cup year for the Canucks. They just don't have enough going for them right now.
That's all Oiler fans have been saying is cup year. I mean, like, look at any chat or tweet or whatever it is. This was their cup year, and they showed why. Like, I'm not saying they will win, but they've been kind of building to this moment.
So with that in mind, is it almost a bit of a silver lining here for the Canucks that they don't get exhausted by playing the additional round? They get a slightly longer summer to recuperate and nurse the injuries, and then they get to address some of the holes that they figured out with the experience. They go back into next season, and next season, if they're in the same position in the second round, I think people will have a little bit more faith in them, no?
Yeah, I mean, the faith will be there for sure. I think the process is going to be really important. I mean, there's multiple ways that you can look at this, and probably all of them will have some kernels of truth. On the one hand, because they had so many circus-like wins, it probably masked some of the deficiencies that this group has had, and it probably masked as unbelievable a job as Rick Tocchet did when they announced the Jack Adams Award winner this week. It's going to be Tocchet. And more than that, he did a Jack Adams-like job in this playoffs with the adjustments that he made game to game. That said, you can't defend your way to winning a second round series. It's not going to work. They tried that, and they need to find a way to adjust that. They need a better balance of attack. The tough part that I struggle with on the whole is finding a path for the Canucks to be better next season.
It's going to be tough.
They took their shot this year. They were ultra aggressive because I think they realized the opportunity and window that they had. Pettersson's contract kicks in. That's got a whole host of questions that are attached to it now for a guy that didn't show up in the playoffs. The support that he got was unbelievable to close out the series. A fan base needs to prop up an $11.6 million player is a bit of lunacy. I would say that there's just humongous decisions lying around every corner. Are you keeping Zadorov or Hronek? Can you find a way to find cash for Elias Lindholm, who was sublime at times in these playoffs and did a lot of heavy lifting that no one really seemed to talk about? What's up with the health of Thatcher Demko? I think is a fair question to ask for someone who hasn't really played a full and complete 82 game season yet in his career. Where did Quinn Hughes go in these playoffs? How banged up was he? Why was he so at times underwhelming compared to the regular season? Do you pay Dakota Joshua? I mean, we will talk about
Yes,
these
we will,
all
Frank.
summer long. And
Every Friday, buddy.
I'm not going to go overboard, but the point is they had a good team. They took their shot this year and were the work that their management team did was superb.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve full credit. And I think the biggest takeaway, if you're looking for a positive sign today from the Vancouver Canucks, not only do they believe, I hate the cheesy, hokey play for the crest on the front, not the name on the back, but Rick Tocchet, man, he hit an absolute home run when he said after the game that his message to his team heading into Game 7 was, you've put respect back in this crest and in this city.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, the Vancouver Canucks have been a laughing stock, 10 years now, almost. And now this is a destination that not only is it an unbelievable place to be and live and play, but that's a coach that people want to play for.
And he absolutely is. And it doesn't take away from an award-winning season that he's likely to have, as you pointed out. I think they had the horses to be a more attacking team. I think we saw that in Game 5, and we saw that in the third period, and even really the last 30 minutes entirely of game number 7 as well.
But where'd it go?
Well, why? Yeah, where did it go? Was it his doing that it didn't come out earlier and when they needed it to? Like, did he spend so much time turning this team into? And I will admit, I did not think this team could play the defensive hockey that it ultimately ended up playing. So kudos to him for that. He enriched the defensive side of the game. But did it come fully at the expense of the offense?
It felt almost like, hey, this team had so little structure. We're going to overcorrect to beat it into them. And they did. Yeah. And the fact that they dialed in and listened is like, again, full marks. And Quinn Hughes said, hey, we had to get the stink out of this team. Well, the stink's gone.
Yep.
There's been plenty of OxyClean and Tide that's washed through that. But now it's about correcting back to the mean. You've got to find a way to find a happier, healthier balance for this team to open up the offensive horses on this team to create, because we saw it in spurts and we just didn't see it enough. And they were never even, I'd say this goes to the Nashville series too. They were never truly threatening in any game that I was like, man, you know what? Like, this team is going to run you over and score the goals necessary to win, which is why I hate, I think it's a little bit unfair, or maybe a step too far, a bridge too far, to say that the way they won games was with smoke and mirrors. But the truth is this: they finished the playoffs with a negative goal differential, and they had one game of the 13 that they played where they had 30 or more shots. Like, it's just not good enough.
Was it too much jump and chase?
Game 5 against Edmonton, 35 shots, 70 attempts, by far their best offensive performance. And as Frank says, just one of them through 13 games.
You had Stuart Skinner in net, who showed zero signs of being able to answer the question of, are you any good? And
Calvin Pickard, Frank. And Calvin Pickard.
But you never asked the question.
Fragile goaltenders, and you did not ask enough questions of them.
That's the missed opportunity.
It brings me back to Tocchet and the defensive system you talked about. And can you only go so far with it? Like, what's the risk of Tocchet falling in love with the PDO here, where he continues to preach quality of shots over quantity of shots, and of course has to get the saves on the other end from Thatcher Demko to make that work? Like, this was a hell of a PDO year in the first half of the season for the Vancouver Canucks. Everything was going in, and their goaltending was stopping a bunch of grade A chances against. I just hope Tocchet doesn't fall in love with that formula going forward.
I think they need more.
I think they need more shots.
I agree. I'm not concerned that he will, though, because I think he's smart enough to understand and sit back and say, hey, we need to adjust here.
I agree.
That said, when you look at these players, part of it was on their own execution too. Like Rick Tocchet is not preaching for Elias Pettersson to throw the puck away carelessly as many times as he did because it seemed like he was trying to avoid contact. That's not the coach. So at some point, questions need to be asked of the players, and there were plenty asked of Pettersson during this round, and rightfully so.
5 times in this series, Frank, 30 or more shot attempts either missed the net or blocked. So to the execution side of things, you're right. There were 5 different times.
How long do you think Ilya Mikheyev is going to be thinking about that one?
Oh, wow. A lot.
PDG all alone doesn't hit the net. You know,
Garland had a couple good looks.
Yeah.
I mean,
Lafferty.
none bigger than JT Miller hitting Nikita Zadorov in the shins. I mean, that's the game right there. I mean, they produced after all that, the timeout, after the Darnell Nurse, team huddle on the bench, they still got the look that they wanted and couldn't convert.
But maybe the problem is that the guys getting the big chances were PDG
That's it.
And Sam Lafferty, and not and Mikheyev, and not players of better quality.
Which is my next question. How many wingers shy are they here?
They're like 3.
Yeah.
and
just that.
And look, the team you just played has been through this exact thing.
Yes. Yeah.
How long did we talk about the Edmonton Oilers being multiple wingers short of a top 6?
Yep.
A legitimate top, and then they went out and found Evander Kane and Zach Hyman. And like there are ways to do it. They have 5 or 6 of the top 6 pieces you need to win. And yet, even then, we were still asking questions about the Oilers' secondary scoring in this series. So, I think of it all the time. It's like golf. You figure out your putter, you can't get off the tee to save your life. You can hit a wedge shot and you're hitting greens all day. You can't make a putt. It's like sometimes it comes and goes, and it has a rhythm and rhyme all to its own.
Lastly, my dude, hope you enjoyed your month-long dance here with Canucks Twitter.
It's a special place.
I understand. Hey, first of all, in his defense, beginning of the season, he comes on, he tells us the Canucks are going to the playoffs. Demko's winning the Vezina.
Your own president wasn't sure, by the way. Just like want to
Canucks went to the playoffs. Demko is a Vezina finalist. He's not going to win it, but close enough. Canucks Twitter beat you up a little bit here in the last few days.
I mean, look,
feel like a punching bag, Frank.
The guy from Philly is somehow an Oiler fan.
Exactly.
In the minds.
The guy from Philly is taking a Rocky Balboa style beating here.
They're both orange teams, but
you mentioned Philly. I grew up there, born and raised, and every single day when I worked at the newspaper there, my inbox was filled with way worse than what I got from Canucks Twitter.
Oh, okay.
That said, it was fun to be here, and it's fun when you're in the throes of a playoff series for people to perceive your coverage one way or the other. I only view it as just dead nuts straight. Hey, I don't. This job is stressful enough. I don't care who wins or loses, and most of the time, the only team I root for is the one that gets me home to see my family quicker.
That's right.
I've been in Vancouver and back and forth. I went to every one but one of the Canucks playoff games, home and road. 26 out of the last 30 days I've been gone. Trust me, I don't have a dog in the fight, but it was fun to interact and see it. And the other thing about social media is you run into people on the street, and they always have nice things to say.
That's it.
They never say anything to your face, but that said, I mean, I did get a few.
Were some highlights? Did you have some highlights for us?
I did get a few beauties. You want to have a little?
Sure. Give us
a
little
apologies
mean tweet.
to. Is it Jimmy Fallon that does mean tweets?
I forget who did.
Yeah,
one of the late night.
So I tweeted out a photo of the Canucks, actually a video of them being saluted by their fans. I mean, think about that. A dejecting, disappointing Game 7. Your team didn't really bring it. And instead of being upset, they faded this team for minutes with a standing ovation, towels waving, go Canucks, go. I'll never forget for my life the JT Miller chant echoing through this city after Game 5 and the let's go Petey trying to pick up a player. But this one is from Ashton. He says, Frank, don't pretend like you have some nice words now. It was incredibly obvious you didn't think Vancouver belonged here and didn't give them a sniff of respect Don't act like it now. Take your Oilers jersey and move along where you'll get swept easily by Dallas.
You and your Oilers jersey, Frank. Again, to review, one of the only guys I can remember in September saying they were going to the playoffs. But go ahead.
And there's one more.
Remember the way we reacted.
Yeah.
Like, really? You're the one?
Yeah. One more. I will always remember how you homered the Oilers in this series. You never, ever appeared on our shows or stations, you bum. Handshakes, LMFAO. They beat a third-string goalie. If Demko is here, it's curtains for your Oilers.
Oh, your Oilers.
Yeah.
Demko wasn't here. I mean, does anybody think that they were the better team for the series? Like,
No.
they weren't.
No.
It's not that. This is what got me into trouble, apparently, with Canucks fans. My only point the whole time was the Oilers have a higher ceiling than the Canucks. That's all I said. And if that offends people, I think it's fact. But more than that, that isn't always what decides one playoff series or game 7. That's not how this sport works. But when the Oilers could get to their top level, they have, for the first time in NHL history, they are the first team that has 3 20-plus point players through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's inarguable that they have a higher ceiling, but that almost wasn't enough.
They've been working at it for the better part of a decade here, trying to build around Connor McDavid. I would hope that they are a better team on paper.
Players of that stature almost always win Stanley Cups in the National Hockey League. And guys, think of it. If Edmonton had gotten some goaltending in this series,
it could have been quick.
Yeah.
Could have been quick.
The Oilers could have been up 3-0.
We will continue on, Mr. Seravalli, with weekly hits here through the playoffs and, of course, into the busy off-season of June and July. Thank you for this.
My pleasure. What a city.
Farewell.
Yeah.
Farewell. Hope you come back and see us here in Vancouver soon enough.
Can't wait.
And we'll line up Ashton and some of these mean tweeters. Maybe a little face-to-face. They'll be kinder, gentler.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.